Note that engineering study for the Egina oil field project began in 2008 with an approval of the National Petroleum Investment Management Services, NAPIMS, and the Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, in 2008 and 2009 respectively. The Egina project was conceived as a deep offshore field comprising of a floating production storage and offloading vessels, FPSO, and oil offloading terminals and subsea production systems such as riser, 52 kilometers of oil and water injection flow liners, 12 flexible jumpers, 20 kilometers of gas export pipeline, and 80 kilometers of umbilical and subsea manifold. Note further that Egina project located within the oil mining lease block OML 130 and covers an area of about 500 square miles is developed by Total Exploration and Production Nigerian Limited, 24% in partnership with CNOOC Energy Nigeria Limited, 45%, Petrobras 16%, and Septro 15%, to contribute an estimated 200,000 barrels of oil per day to the Nigerian daily oil production from the planned 2018 commencement date. The oil field is situated at a water depth of up to 1,750 kilometers. Aware that the total awarded various contracts for the different components of the Egina project to 1. Dover's Engineering, Abbott Race Consulting, ARC, Sapien, FMC Technology, Volrex and Samsung Heavy Industry SHI. For feed contract, safety engineering design studies, engineering procurement fabrication and installation, EPCAI, and the pre-commissioning contract, engineering procurement construction and commissioning, EPCC contract for subsea production system, steel tube umbilical of production, water injection and subsea isolation valve, SSIV types, trunky contract for the design, procurement, construction, delivery and trial operation of the Egina FSPO respectively. Aware that several of these contractors have also engaged subcontractors to provide various aspects of these project components. Understand that the Egina project was expected to comply with the provision of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act of 2010 by awarding required equivalent contracts to indigenous Nigeria companies, engaging local manpower and providing adequate manpower training and development programs to the Nigerian workforce, as well as ensuring needed technology and knowledge transfer proportionately to the overall project value and scope. Observe that at inception, the project was estimated to cost $6 billion but undergoes several cost variations and currently puts the cost at over $16.352 billion today. Aware that the key component of the Egina project, the floating production, the storage and offloading FSPO vessels, has been completed and is currently on the sea to Nigeria. The FSPO contracted to the Korean-based Samsung Heavy Industries with Lador Integrated Logistic Enterprise as the local content partner. Is expected to arrive Nigeria from Korea before the end of 2017 or early January 2018. Aware that several fabrication and integration works have also been completed by Sapien, Nest Oil, Nigerdoc, Dermalong, and Avion, who are contractors or subcontractors for different aspects of the project. Observe that all is set for the integration of the 6 locally fabricated topside modules to be integrated on the FSPO at Samsung CI yard before the sale to the OML 13 location and site of the Egina oil field. In essence, all appears to be set for the project to go alive. First oil date planned for fourth quarter of 2018. Note that at inception, the project cost boosted of 24 million man-hour of work done in the country, representing 77% of the workload for the project, an equivalent of a workforce of 3,000 persons, and average over a period of 5 years. There was a planned fabrication of approximately 60,000 tons of equipment in various yards in the country, including specialized equipment like pressure vessels, flare towers, early deck, leading quarters structures, large FSPO structures, and complex subsea structures. Further note that another 297,000 man-hour of work on the basic engineering for the Egina project was stipulated to be performed in the country to represent 94% of the total man-hour spent. Thousands of hours in the in-country and foreign training programs were planned for the project workforce as part of the required technology transfer. Concerned that over the life of the project, the cost component has been reviewed twice, from the initial $6 billion approximately budget ends to about 13 billion, and most recently to 16.352 billion approximately. Disturbed that the local content element as well as the cost variation of the project have been subject of several petitions and queries over the years. Petitions have been submitted to effect the Monumental Fraud Act of Disregard for the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Development Act of 2010, abound on the procurement and the contractual arrangement of the FSPO element of the procurement. Understand that the assertion abound in the oil and gas industry to the effect that the several of the planned in-country engineering activities relating to the FSPO as well as other elements of the project were not executed in Nigeria, but were rather executed in Korea and other related countries, and only imported into Nigeria. This is contrary to the project work plan and again the spirit of the provision of protection of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Development Act of 2010. Disturbed that the role and commitment of Lador as a local content partner to Samsung Heavy Industry on the FSPO element of the project has also been alleged to have been connived with Samsung to take away jobs from Nigeria and revenue from the federal government. Lador, like other subcontractors on the Egina project, from Duco Limited, FMC Technologies, Non-Oil and Gas, Bell Oil and Gas, and Honeywells, is speculated to have allowed the exploitation of some of the work that ought to have been executed in country, and also participated in the cost variation in a bid to earn more than commission from the increased project cost. In a commission-based contract, several other indigenous companies as bidded to participate in the FSPO project were believed to have been engaged out of favor to favor the Samsung Lador deal. Observe that the Samsung, like other contractors on the project, began making variation during the life of the project without proportionate increase in the local content element of the project. Concerned that already two similar deep offshore field projects like the Egina, namely the Bonga Southwest and the Zabazaba, with serious local content implication, are about to commence by the IOC and Nigerian government, with sharp different costs and variation from each other. Further note that in view of the huge variation in the cost of Egina and possible non-adherence to the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Act of 2010, as well as discrepancies in the cost of Egina and two similar projects of the Bonga Southwest and Zabazaba, Nigeria may be perpetually indebted to the end of about 45 years, not 25, lifespan of these projects without any benefit thereon. Further concerned that local content elements of the Egina were planned to reflect the overall project cost and scope at inception, as required by the provision of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Development Act of 2010. However, the enormous variation of the project cost from approximately $6 billion to $16.352 billion over the years, it has also become necessary to understand, 1, the basis of the two or more variations, 2, the general compliance of the individual aspect of the Egina project to the provision of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industrial Content Act 2010, 3, the aspect and component of the Egina project that have had variation since the project commencement, 4, the impact of such cost variation on the initial local content element of the project, 5, if the local content element have been adequately adjusted with variation, and 6, the impact of the 167% variation in the initial project capital expenditure, CAPEX, on the overall project viability to the Nigerian content, as the variation is expected to drastically change the project payback period. Accordingly resolved, direct the Committee on Local Content to investigate the local content element and the cost variation related to Egina oil fee and the two related Bonga Southwest and Zabazaba project, with the mandate to, 1, carry out public hearing on this widely celebrated project, 2, ensure that there are no future changes necessitated further variation of the cost project, 3, ascertain whether the cost project has direct impact on the project scope and objective, 6, 4, ensure that the cost variation have the required resultant effect on the local content element of the project, and 5, stop further action on the Bonga Southwest and Zabazaba oil field pending the outcome on investigation on the Egina and the variation in cost between these three similar projects. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I want to specially thank Mr. President and my distinguished colleague for the opportunity given to move this all-important motion. Mr. President, long before now, in the past, I want to say this, that this is the first project where we have a full-fledged local content and the implementation of the NOJIT Act to have happened. Mr. President, the first one that was done was before the NOJIT Act, which is the main Bonga. But since the passage of the NOJIT Act by this National Assembly, the first one to be done is the Egina project, which is in conjunction with Total. The two other that is expected to be done is the Bonga Southwest and the Zabazaba. But Mr. President, my fear about these three projects is that the nature of the project and the way the project is being structured is not in the overall interest of Nigeria. While the first project is to cover a lifespan of 25 years, the two other projects is to cover a lifespan of 20 years respectively. But Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I want to just mention this to my colleague, that while the first project is to cost $16.5 billion, the next project of 150,000 barrels is to cost Nigeria $10 billion, while the third project of the same capacity of 150,000 barrels is to cost Nigeria $6.5 billion. I want to yield the floor for my colleague also to make that contribution. If any other time I come back to give more other information. Thank you, Mr. President. I so move.
Central